Now, something we had talked about earlier was what are the interesting things, what are the uncommon things that PRTG can monitor. We have customers ranging from hospitals to farms to even casinos, monitoring everything from blood banks to dishwashers at a hospital for temperature, so that the sterilization standards are met, to a casino that's monitoring their slot machines for status and uptime and performance and specific metrics from those machines, to a prawn farm where they monitor the salinity and temperature of the water, the prawn farm. We have folks monitoring chicken coops, to physical mail slot to count the number of mail pieces that are coming in through a mail slot. This monitoring of things page is pretty interesting. We've got a turkey hatchery to a wear a tie sensor, where they monitor the boss's presence from an access-based back-end database. Got a paracycling. Absolutely. To high-end super yachts, where they're running a remote probe on the yachts and pulling back all the infrastructure from those yachts back to PRTG. So PRTG is an extremely customizable solution, from custom SNMP sensors, string sensors, custom table sensors, custom library sensors. So we're able to capture the MIBs from any enterprise MIBs for really any manufacturer that's writing SNMP. We can take those MIBs and identify specific OID values and do a partial selection of the things that you want to monitor on that device. So maybe there's fans, or there's temperature readings, or there's specific traffic metrics that you want to create your own custom sensor with. You can do that with PRTG, as well as take your own PowerShell scripts or VB scripts or Python scripts to monitor specific processes, SSH scripts to connect to a Linux environment and pull back metrics on the performance of a specific process or the status of that system. So it's extremely customizable, and ultimately, once you've created a monitoring system that works for you, that is capturing the metrics that matter to you for your core infrastructure. Again, some customers are focused specifically on the network. They're looking at net flow, they're looking at bandwidth monitoring, they're looking at traffic. Other customers want to see everything, of course. Ultimately, what do you do with that data? How do you present that data? And that really comes down to typically two areas: maps and reporting. Maps can be designed to give you insight from a single dashboard. Well, for example, here in this dashboard, we're pulling back an IP camera feed. We're pulling a weather underground feed, as well as a Google traffic map using Google's API. On top of that, we're pulling in data from across the network. We've got those business process sensors, top 10 disk space, top 10 bandwidth usage, alarms, up sensors. We're monitoring storage and our ESX hosts. Another map may be something more high level from a management perspective. That could be in the form of just business process sensors, where you're showing your customers, your management team, what the status is of your core infrastructure or the core applications that you're delivering for your customers or clients.
What is this UI in? Is it all HTML5, or is there any Flash? Or
It's an AJAX web interface, so it does require Flash. So as you can see, you can incorporate all of your own images, background images, architectural designs, Visio stencils, and overlay all of that data overlay all those images with your own sensor data from PRTG. So the map designer is really is HTML. So you're combining sensors with icons, and you can even incorporate your own custom HTML. So external data in the form of maybe Google AdWords, analytics, website data, IP camera feeds, webcam feeds, like that other map demonstrated, where we're doing a fairly simple API call to Google to bring in that traffic map. You could even include a CNN newsfeed. So ultimately, you've got a dashboard for your admins, for your engineers to see everything and then some.
So assuming that this was not the cloud-based version and it was an on-site install, how is all of that stuff backed up? Does it like auto back up to FTP or TFTP? All of your system configurations, like all of your dashboards and stuff that you've set up?
Everything, yeah, everything's saved within a server. There's really just 3 folders: the config files, database, and logs. The backup is fairly straightforward from that standpoint.
So what's the sizing and licensing requirements? Because obviously storage gets out of control in a hurry, regardless of what Howard says. And I think for those of us that are trying to be reasonably priced and address that, how big, how quickly, what size and scale do you typically see your customers doing?
Average customer has about 1,500 sensors. Storage requirements on something like that would be roughly, this varies because of scanning intervals, right? Because if you're scanning all of your devices at a 60-second scanning intervals, the amount of data you're pulling in is significantly more. But let's say roughly 300 to 500 gigs per year of data storage. Now that's raw monitoring data. And again, that's 1,500 sensors. That's an average. That's a decent size install. You know, when you get above 2,500 to 5,000 sensors, that's a little bit of a little bit larger install, obviously. But
so, who do you really see as your main competitor in this space for the size and scope that you got, of what you guys cover? Is it a NetScout? Is it a SolarWinds? Is it
typically SolarWinds. What's Up Gold. More often than not, it's the open source crowd that is kind of looking our way when they're tired of playing with Nagios or Zabbix or some of the other Xenos. Yeah, a lot of Nagios and Intermapper, things like that.
you guys building any partner agreements with data ingestion side? You know, Splunk is pretty famous on the reporting side.
Yes.
Is there any story there, or you guys see them as competition, or?
No, because they really play more in the analytics, not so much in the real-time infrastructure monitoring.
So I had a question about the database monitoring. You talked about response times. Are there other types of sensors, and how are those sensors physically implemented, and where?
Yeah, great question. Depending upon the database type, it could be anything from MySQL to SQL, Oracle, Postgres, and we also have a way to anything that can respond to a query. You can write your own queries and implement those within PRTG. We have an ADO SQL sensor for that. Now, typically, customers are looking at what we consider the four majors in Oracle and Microsoft. So, monitoring the database directly with I'll use Microsoft for this example. Now, what we're looking at here is specific application metrics. Now, this is being pulled via WMI from a Microsoft server, and the second piece would be actually monitoring the database itself, and that would be SQL v2 sensor. So as you can see, we can just use Oracle. So with Oracle, we have 2 separate sensors, one for monitoring the database directly and one for the table space. So customers can define their own queries and
So they do something like write a query that has some sort of workload that they want to test for. So like a monitoring query, something.
yeah, so they're checking for execution time, the number of rows. They can parse that data table after it executes if they want to kind of add to that. But ultimately, they're looking at execution time and how many rows they're pulling back, so they know it's up and it's running. And then So that would be more or less the same across the board for Postgres and MySQL, or any other ODBC or really anything you could write a query against. So as long as we have direct line of sight to it and have the credentials to be able to write those queries and execute them, you can monitor.
So can you talk a little bit about cloud integration? Because there are a lot of shops that already have much of your functionality already Meraki, for instance, on their wireless side has a lot of obviously mapping and other service components you can probably query and pipe it all into yours. But is there other things that you guys are doing in that area that make it a little easier in that single pane side versus having multiple panes you have to pop in and out of in order to get stats?
Yeah, so we can tie directly into the Merakis for traffic. So the cloud controllers, we can look at the traffic on the cloud controllers and the access points. Because the Merakis aren't like the other Cisco devices and don't follow the same SNMP OID values, it's a little bit limited compared to your typical switches or access points, but we can still tie into them. As far as cloud integration, that would be kind of along the line of either using the API, writing your own custom sensors. So we've got a fully documented REST API, so customers can either pull historic data, do object manipulation, write their own custom sensors. So that could be in the form of a script sensor, SSH, or PowerShell, what have you. And then on the other end would be, so there's a couple different ways. So we can take in XML and JSON data, and we've got a push data sensor that can push information via XML or JSON into PRTG directly. So as long as those return values are what we expect, then we can ingest that. So examples of that would be our ticketing system, for example, at Paessler headquarters. We're looking at our ticket count for customer service and sales and tech support, and we're able to put that into a dashboard and set notifications around it. So anything that's in a valid XML or JSON format, we can then put into channels and treat it like any other sensor from that standpoint. I know that's more information than you were interested in. The other piece there is tying into AWS cloud services. So monitoring CloudWatch for EC2 performance, RDS, different. The main instances within PRTG are the main services within AWS. CloudWatch we tie into, so we're not
Native API access for CloudTrail to be able to grab everything out of there.
No, not at this time.
Quick question on the cloud services component of things that you guys are rolling out. Is that service based in AWS, or is that a private cloud that you all are maintaining?
The hosted?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's AWS.
Okay.
Yep.
If you had a restriction, for example, say a client needed to have data remain in a particular geographic location, would you be able to support that?
With the hosted, so they wanted like an AWS instance in Australia, let's say, as opposed to
Maintain the data there,
Germany. That's a very good example, since actually. Good question. Yeah. We have instances all around the world. I don't see why not, but
I think maybe the question is, can it be directed, right?
Yeah.
Specified as opposed to just the closest one.
Right, the closest region.
yes. Actually, you do have that option, I believe, when you sign up, you can set your location, or we know your location based upon your IP address when you sign up. Furthermore, remote probes can be run from anywhere. So if you've got data centers in a particular area, you run those remote probes there. But ultimately, the concern is, where's the data being stored?
What's the licensing model, and does it differ from the cloud?
The licensing model is the same. It's just a question of subscription versus a perpetual license, and it's based upon sensors. So if we were to go into just looking at list prices today, so PRTG is licensed in certain levels, right? So it's PRTG 500, and then you go to 1,000, and you only pay for scale. So as you need to monitor more stuff, you buy more sensors, and you go up to the next licensing level. So all of these include 12 months of maintenance.
If XL1 and XL5 are both unlimited, why do I pay more for XL5?
Because XL5 is actually 5 core servers, so it would be 4 additional core servers. So, so a total of 5 unlimited. So in theory, you could have 5 separate core servers with a whole bunch of sensors. But yeah, getting back to your question, the same exists within PRTG on demand, up to 5,000 sensors. So you could have a PRTG 500 in the cloud. If we were to go,
So that price doesn't include the sensors, though.
it does. So this is a monthly, and obviously these are beta because we're in a public beta right now. Beta prices will change after the beta phase.
Offer expires, why you wait?
So $249 a month is the standard list price. $10 a month is.
Just during the beta, exactly. Smoking deal right now. So get it while it's hot.
And the special tech deal that Field Day Delegate offer is.
These promo prices.
A PRTG 500 is only $1 a month. So one of the big differences is we don't have a free offering beyond the 10 days. So with PRTG on premise, you have 100 sensors free forever. So you can run our unlimited free trial, and after 30 days it goes down to 100 sensors, and have at it.
So I can plug it into my SmartThings Hub and my Echo. And
Yep. And you can talk to PRTG via.
Then you can get an SMS when the maid uses her code on the sidewalk.
You can now talk to PRTG via an Echo.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of wild. So,
Sort of creepy too.
V6 support? V6 support?
V6.
IPv6?
Yes.
How much?
How much support or how much extra?
Both, I guess.
No, it's included. I mean, so you can monitor IPv6 or IPv4 devices.
so sorry, I missed that. Is it a skill in Alexa, or is it just using some generic interface?
It's not a published skill, so we've got the step-by-step guide and the config and file code files.